We're going to give our panelists 2 minutes to give us a broad overview of what that particular topic means to them in their respective areas, and then we shall get into the questions that we had prepared. We would like you in the room to also prepare your comments and questions. Every so often we'll take a bit of a break and invite your participation in the room, as well as all the people who are logged in online. We also welcome you for this session, and we are glad that you've joined us. Please use either the Q&A box or the chat box to let us know what you'd like us to focus on in terms of a comment or a question. So we'll be periodically checking in, both in the room and online, so that everybody can hopefully get a chance to get their particular areas of concern or their questions addressed. So we'll start with Jocelyn and work our way back to Sarah. 2 minutes for you to give us an overview.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I would like to thank the organizing committee and the sponsors for this invitation and the opportunity to really share on a very important topic. Some of us are on the other side, trying to do our part in building businesses or SMEs, and obviously have ambitious dreams. And so this particular topic is one that I feel very strongly about. And as you've mentioned, I do sit on a couple of boards. So I've had the opportunity over the last couple of years to grow in this particular field and to even change my view, to be honest, about it. I first actually came across this concept of corporate governance when I was in business school. And I actually remember, I think it was William Kalema that I interviewed. I had a paper that I had to write about corporate governance. And I was just trying to understand, I think he was at DFCU at the time, trying to understand, what does this actually look like? What does this mean, this concept, Because it has, it's a buzzword, it's been around, and everyone is pushing a lot of business players to embrace it. And so, I really wanted to start getting my head around what this meant because, doing the MBA, I really had a passion to go into business. So I really wanted to make sure I tick that box off. I'll just quickly jump to where my understanding is. To me, corporate governance is something that is very broad and something that actually covers everything right from strategy formulation, understanding how to monitor the business operations, making sure that, what you have set out to do is really what you're doing. And there you talk about, audits, etc. And then there's the aspect of risk mitigation as well. So at a minimum, just briefly, to me, those are the buckets. But before I hand back to my other panelists, I would say that this is this one thing or one tool that is really underutilized and undermined simply because most of us who are in the business side struggle to actually understand the return on investment of embracing this particular best practice. And I think, what I would hope that we would live with from here, and I actually also want to obviously deepen my own understanding of this, is, a real commitment, and hopefully we can touch a couple of other business players with some of the stories we'll share, but a real commitment to embrace this in its totality, because the tool, like I mentioned, is quite underutilized, but the value that can come from it, and I will talk when the chance comes later about the actual cost of not embracing it. And we've lived through, as Crestform, that actually cost, and I can tell you the cost is tremendously painful. So with those few words, I hope that this session goes well, and like I said, I'm really happy to be here and looking forward to learning from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Over to you, Daniel.
I want to thank the sponsors and the organizers for this opportunity. Coming from the SME world, or having had a startup and looking at this concept of corporate governance, it gives me a lot of pleasure to see that right from the start, having gone through the deal flow facility from FSDU. I think we were not the first, but I was one of the cohorts, I think either within the first or second year that went through the program and decided to embrace all the aspects of corporate governance to ensure sustainability and foolproofing the business for the future. I mean, we went ahead and, for me, what it means is putting in place the structures, and not just putting in place the structures, but living the journey of corporate governance, having the ability to step aside and give control to the rest of the structures, and having the humility to know what it takes if you want scale. I know for sure many people just want to tick off the boxes on corporate governance, either to attract financials or partners, but living the journey has been very, very important for our business as we try to scale. I know it's a hard thing. It's actually costly, especially for SMEs, to try and put the corporate governance structures and much more to live it and respect and know and let the structures work. But what I want to say is it's a phenomenon. It's very hard to define it, that it's this or that. But what I would say, it's a journey. And with the journey, you each day set a goal. And as you're getting that goal, you set a bigger goal. And that's what it is for corporate governance for me. Each day is a journey. You look at the ambition of where you want to be. You look at some businesses that have leaned on good corporate governance to make it. You also take the lessons of those that have avoided the corporate governance, putting the structures and have failed. I think there's a statistic, over 70% of businesses that start in Uganda fail in their first 3 years, which is very worrying. So you never want to be part of that statistic, and one way to avoid that is get the structures in. They'll be costly, they'll be painful, they'll require you to lose a bit of control, but then it's what will anchor you for the future growth, for the scaling, for the kind of business that you dream of as a founder, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. Probably a lot more will come during the question and answer session, but briefly, I mean, I had the privilege of having been through different institutions and saw what they considered corporate governance to be, having been at Stanbic, then later the East African Development Bank, then Finance in Motion, and saw what corporate governance meant to all these institutions and how they were able to lean on some of these to scale or to just run business the normal way, and you don't have to be worried each day if one person is in place. I mean, there'll be a lot of the succession planning, the board, the risk management. But above all, also, I mean, you're in, and if you don't have good corporate governance structures, no outsider is going to want to do business with you because, I mean, it's you, and they need someone independent or someone, some level of transparency where they could look through you. And that's what you need as a business as you try and scale. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. Sarah?
Okay, I would also like to just thank the organizers of this event for putting it together. And in particular, I'd just like to talk about the DFF, which is the Deal Flow Facility. The Deal Flow Facility is a program that's funded by the European Union and is run or managed by FSD Uganda. This program was designed to respond or address the challenges around access to finance for businesses in the growth stage. So most of the businesses that usually grapple with corporate governance are usually mainly the businesses in the growth stage. And usually these are businesses that are looking to scale and also attract capital or finance. So we work with these enterprises or these businesses, and we have a systematic and very supportive approach that we take to prepare these businesses to be investor ready, or to be businesses that are ready for other stakeholders to pool resources together to enable them scale. And this is how we kind of do it. We usually start off by doing an assessment, a detailed assessment of the business. And through this process, we are able to identify the gaps that the businesses have, any areas of improvement that they may have, and growth potential of the businesses. So based on the results of this assessment, we are then able to tailor technical assistance to enable these businesses close the gaps and be ready to scale and also attract other stakeholders to join them and grow their businesses. So there's a little joke we usually say that the DFF or the deal flow facility is like a dating app. So we usually know where all the investors are. And now we also have these businesses that we've been working with to prepare them to attract capital. So we then do the matching, and we do it in many ways. So we know which investors are out there that are looking to invest in particular kinds of businesses. So we bring the two together. We also do it through networking sessions. So one of the challenges that we faced when we do the assessments is that a number of businesses do not have corporate governance structures in place. And because of this, many investors are not willing to invest in these businesses. And that's the reason we are here today. So we'd like to thank the Boardroom Masterclass for bringing us together and for always running sessions like this that empower different businesses, because this is what we need to do to be able to empower businesses in Uganda to grow, scale, and probably even become international. So if you're a business out there that's looking to benefit in terms of just improving yourself and just knowing probably where you are, the DFF through FSD Uganda is willing to work with you to help you improve your business and get ready to work with other stakeholders. I thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and to Daniel and Jocelyn. At this point, I would like to acknowledge in the room the presence of Justice Stephen Kavuma. He's the chairman of the Civil Aviation Authority Board, and I think they planned it. Seated next to him is Dr. Dorothy Okello. She's the chair at Uganda Communications Commission, as well as a director at Standard Chartered Bank. We also have Dr. Rita Kabatunzi. She's the company secretary at Stanbic Holdings Company. I don't know that she has stepped out. Oh, okay. I was trying to see where is she. All right. And also, more importantly, the people we have to thank for putting together the Boardroom Masterclass. The founding partners are also in the room. I'll start with Ruth Sebatandira. She's a founding partner at Legalmark Advocates and a member of the Judicial Service Commission. Rachel Dumba, founding director at Stedman Global, and she's a non-executive director at Uganda Breweries. And then we also have Linda Viribonwa. She's the CEO of Cove Uganda and a non-executive director at the Petroleum Authority of Uganda. So back to the discussion. As we were reading to prepare for this session, first of all, we were debating on what is an SME. How do we define an SME? And without going into number of employees, annual turnovers, how many geographical locations you're in, we said we shall be here till the cows come home, because it will be difficult for us to agree on a common definition of an SME. So I decided to get a definition which is a bit more simple, and it seems to be borne out by a couple of things I read. So I found three broad categories: startups, scale-ups, and what they're calling grown-ups. So if you will allow us today afternoon, that is the definition we are going to work with for SME. Otherwise, we shall have very heated debates about if someone is in the $1 million turnover, are they still an SME? Have they graduated to another level? So startups, scale-ups, and grown-ups. If we look at that simple definition of SMEs, I know most SME owners or founders are saying, okay, you want us to go corporate governance. But what does that look like practically, especially if you think about those categories? Because if I'm a startup, do I have to go full executive board? Can I start with an advisory board? So this is a question for all our panelists, and you can make your contributions. Just help us in the room and our community online to understand practically what does corporate governance look like for someone who is running or who owns an SME, and they really now want to go this route of corporate governance in no particular order.
I'll go first. I think I'll just like to also probably define corporate governance in a very simple way. I think it kind of refers to structures and processes by which a business is controlled and directed. Like Jackie has rightfully said, there are different stages, growth stages of any enterprise. And when we look, for example, at a startup, usually a startup will have its founder, and that founder will be heavily involved in every aspect of the business. So at this point in time, yes, there is need for corporate governance, but the kind of corporate governance at this point, I would think, would be lighter. It would be more of advisory. So it would probably take the form of an advisory board. In some cases, you could have advisors that you engage with that give you information that you then use to make informed decisions and be able to grow. But every business at whatever stage does need someone who, from the outside, who brings expertise into the business. So as the business grows, this owner or CEO, if, for example, it's not an owner-run business, will not be able to get fully involved with every aspect of the business. So at this point, they start to recruit staff. They probably start with a finance person, they're moving on to the HR, they're moving on to different roles. So at this point in time, the business needs to define very clearly what the roles and responsibilities of every different person that has been brought into the business will be. Usually, it's documented in what some organizations call a job description. So as you begin to document, you're already beginning to put in place corporate governance structures. So at this point, you also then need to give guidance to the team, because the team needs to know how decisions are made. What's the culture of this organization? What are the checks and balances? So you also need to put in place internal controls, and this can also be done through processes and procedures that kind of govern how decisions will be made. And at this point, I think this is time for this business to start to formalize their corporate governance structures. It's time for them to have a board, because we now need to also be thinking about how you're going to grow beyond where you currently are. So that's my take. But over to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Sarah. For an SME, and I'll try and relate to FinFort, where we've gone through these stages. But basically, corporate governance is all the processes or structures that a business would put in place to future-proof the business, to be able for the business to be resilient into the future. I know many SMEs at that stage would be struggling just to raise the funds to run any form of structure. And I already think it needs to start from the top, where you probably need to have, like Sarah said, maybe an advisory board. For our case, we went for a supervisory board. Their charter gave them a lot of powers. And when we were forming it, one of my co-founders asked me, so these guys can fire us? I said, unfortunately, yes, they can fire us if we don't deliver to what we've pledged to do. Now, of course, there's an issue of cost initially putting together the board, but I looked at it from a way how we were putting together industry experts, and in a way we were getting free consultation, free advisory services. I mean, we engaged the board so much. Our first board, there's an expert on macroeconomics, so we really needed to understand our operating environment. There's an expert at capital raising, an executive director at an investment bank. I was always in his face just to understand how we need to structure to be able to attract capital. And then the rest of the people, someone in marketing, also how we position ourselves, how we able to grow the brand, and we basically got free consultation at zero cost because we couldn't afford to pay them, but all we did is show them the journey, show them what we needed to do, show them the milestones, and ask that they serve on the board. Now, it's interesting. We always had quite a lot of things that we wanted to do, and you come very excited. You say, we need to start with this. And the board just puts its feet down and say, first do this before you do this. And sometimes it's humbling for you to respect that because you could even think they're slowing you down. And then something happens later and you're reviewing and say, yeah, the board was right. So for an SME, from my experience, and I think what works best as before you grow enough revenues to be able to meet any corporate governance structures, you need to put in place a panel of experts that can guide in what you feel the business needs at that particular time, and also leverage that expertise to roll out and grow the business. It could be costly, it is painful, it requires you giving away control, being accountable to someone, and maybe you've moved out of employment, you're like, this is it for me, we need to do our thing and run it our way, and then now you have to come and do reports and all that, but it's very critical. You can leverage the expertise, you can leverage the knowledge that if you've got a good board of experts. Also, even before then, build networks for SMEs, build networks and leverage those networks to get the right people onto the board. And later you're able to still leverage those networks as you scale.
I'm going to pick on some points that my fellow panelists have touched on. And, you know, I think both of them are a little bit biased because you're coming from the financial institution background. But I want to argue that, to me, corporate governance is, maybe touches to the point, Daniel, you mentioned in your opening remarks about sustainability. To me, it's actually a lot broader than, you know, you're doing something just so you can access money. Of course, that is an important part of being able to scale up and grow up. But, you know, it's really more important to avoid that being that statistic, Daniel, that you said, where you die in 3 years, or even more specifically, I mean, our company has been around 37 years. You die after 37 years. Imagine the amount of commitment, the amount of investment, the amount of sweat hours. And therefore, for me, you know, the sustainability aspect is the one that by far sort of overacts why one should actually embrace it. And just going back to your question, you know, around the structures, and I think, Sarah, you touched on it well, and we had this discussion before. You know, it's a tough one around, you know, what type of corporate governance model does one adopt and when? This whole notion of timing. And I think, Daniel, you talked about cost, right? You know, cost. And I will argue, I'll touch on the cost first. To me, it's how you're looking at this initiative. If you are looking at it from a poor or bad lens, you're going to see it as costly. But you have to think about what's the opportunity cost of not actually embracing it. You know, those issues around financing, whether it's risk mitigation. So, you know, the cost thing should be put aside. You've come into business, you go and put in money, you have insurance, you should at least, you have, you know, people in to help you. This is something that should be a plus. It has to be there. It should not even be looked at as a nice to have or as an option. That's how I think about it. So in terms of what's appropriate when, so you're right, when you're very small and you're starting up, maybe you can have an advisory board, definitely external parties, definitely people who are experts in areas that you probably don't have that knowledge, most likely, because that then gives you that diversity of thought, gives you that enrichment in how you're thinking through your strategic planning and your own processes that you're putting in place. But one of the things we talked about with Sarah was you can become too comfortable with the advisory board. That's what happened in my organization. We became too comfy in that place, you know. So you get stuck in, I have a board, it's advisory, and it seems to be working, right? But the challenge is, because most of our SMEs, you know, they're going through so much so quickly. You know, when you're starting from what we call a low base, the reality is if things are going well, you're going to be growing pretty quickly. And then you now have to ask yourself, it's a whole chicken and egg dilemma. What really should come first? Do I first grow? Then I have all the money in the bank. Then I go and get all these, you know, highly achieved, accomplished people to sit on my board and, you know, hey, it looks good now. Or do I see this as something that is very important to help me actually sustainably grow my business, and therefore I have it a lot earlier, so that that growth path is really informed by the, and you give yourself the chance to actually achieve your goal. So the chicken and egg dilemma there is probably where we were struggling on what's the right time to switch. So for sure, in my mind, I would be biased. I would say, have the advisory board probably when you're still in the startup area, and quickly, as soon as you start bringing that whole segregation, you know, duties where you have a finance manager, you've got like heads of departments for other areas, and the number of employees is getting to like 10 plus. I think you really need to start now forming these committees and actually bringing in experts that will really help inform the way you're really running the business. Because if you don't do it, I mean, I think about Crestform so many times, and I think had we embraced corporate governance when we were 5 years old, I shudder to think where we would be now. I shudder. And I can assure you we would be a lot further. I can tell you categorically. So I would argue that make the switch quickly, and don't look at it as a cost. It is not a cost. The real cost is the opportunity cost of not doing it. And you know, if you really look at what you will be able to unleash in terms of potential of your opportunity, I mean, it is something that should not be undermined. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. You heard it here first from Jocelyn. She's telling you from experience, real life experience, and of a family-owned and run business, which is most of our SMEs. And I think one of the challenges, we were having this discussion earlier, and we're thinking, how can we demonstrate the value of good corporate governance to the SME sector? What approaches, what stories do we need to tell? How can we show people that this is actually good for you? It's like when you're prescribed medicine, it might be bitter, but you know that it's good for you ultimately. So how can we administer this pill of corporate governance to our SMEs in Uganda? And I'm looking at Sarah and Daniel and saying, in your experiences in working with various SMEs, maybe you can share some stories about what good governance has done to contribute to SME success, but also what challenges SMEs have to overcome to get to a point where corporate governance is embedded in the way they run their businesses.
Okay, I'll just start off by sharing a story of Finfort that's seated right next to me, Daniel. Please allow me to. So we at FSDU, through the deal flow facility, we work with businesses, usually in the growth stage. And like I mentioned earlier, we do assessments, and part of the assessment is to look at the corporate governance structure. Many of the businesses that we have assessed in the last few years actually fall short in that area. And so when it comes to when they need to raise capital to be able to scale their businesses, this is one of the challenges that most of the businesses face. Some businesses have some form of corporate governance that they've put in place, but it doesn't really work. They have a structure. When you go to meet with them, they will show you who the board chair is and who the other directors are. In some cases, especially for family-run businesses, you find that the board is management. And there's no, there are no independents on this board. So it's really painful when you have to work with businesses that really need to scale. They have the potential, but they've been limited by just the lack of corporate governance. So when we assessed Finfort was one of those organizations that yes, they did have some gaps and areas of improvement. However, they had a strong corporate governance structure in place. So when we went through the matching process, we were able to get investors who were happy to invest in Finfort simply because they had independent assurance from their board of directors that one, the financials are accurate and reliable, that the business is in good health, it's got checks and balances, it's got internal controls, and so the investor's money is actually secure. So I think I wouldn't do this story justice if I didn't invite Daniel to probably share with us from the business side what exactly corporate governance means to his business and how it has enabled him be able to fundraise and be able to attract quite a number of stakeholders to come in and scale and help scale the business. Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Sarah. I didn't see this coming, so. But anyway, just to take it from where you are. Yes, we went through the DFF program, and yes, we had a bit of challenges, and for the many SMEs out there, I would urge you to sort of enroll for this program because it's free consultancy, world class, and I came from a background where I thought I'd sort of had exposure to quite different parts of what we're trying to invest in, but then I found we really had gaps at that consultancy and came through with some clear gaps. And all we needed to do is put in place a plan of how we were going to address those and a workable plan. Now, yes, we had some structures, we had the board in place, and coming out of that, we looked at what the good corporate governance did for us. The deal flow facility was able to put us in that deal book that happens all the time. I don't know if it's quarterly or something, but we've appeared there. We've been able to raise quite a bit of capital, even very complicated structures for the Ugandan market. We're currently doing a private note, a commercial paper program, private note, that is really in advanced stages. And this would not have been possible if we didn't put in place good corporate governance. You forget the normal commercial banks, everyone can get that. They actually don't look at your structures. They look at your numbers, everything is good. We've done all that. We've gotten money from commercial lenders. We've had offers that we've turned down. We've also gotten choosy. We get people that say, we want revenue share, and we say no. But this is all because we've put in place work from the start, trying to do things the proper way, looking attractive to investors, both foreign and local. I think one of the most competitive landscapes is the Nairobi, the Kenyan market. We sort of identified a peer early on and approached one arranger who's worked with companies like Finfort to sort of help us and take us on the journey of a commercial paper. Not many companies in Uganda have done that, actually. And then
recording
no.
stopped.
And we let it slide and just carried on, put in place the structures, put in place the processes, did business as usual, took all the commercial funds we would access. And then they came knocking. Why? They didn't say no, but they kept looking. Are these guys having the right structures? Are they having good corporate governance? Are they doing all the right things? By the time they came next, they already had investors that had committed certain amounts, and they're like, okay, we've looked at you over this period since you last asked, and I think we're ready to move ahead with you. The one thing that SMEs would benefit from having the right governance structures, you look attractive. You'll also have good risk management. You'll also be innovative. If you got the right board, if you got the right expertise, your board should be able to guide you on world class. Don't settle for less. Look at the impossible and aim high. That's what we've done at Finfort. We have this note program coming up. I know we'll succeed. We've contracted lawyers, the lead arrangers, and the trustees. And I look back and say, what could it have been if probably I sat back and say, this is our thing, we're going to run it our way, we can just put a little money, we'll be profitable, but we would have failed scale. And what would happen after me, the founding partner? A lot of businesses run this risk that you sort of get in, you do not want to lose control, you do not want to invite experts as serve on the boards, and you miss out on the innovation, you miss out on the opportunities out there, because we all don't know it all. We need to open up, and the best way to open up is someone external who you're confident enough to look at your last bits, like you open your closet and they see everything, but they're independent enough to tell you this is not right, you need to put it right, you need to change this. And as SMEs, we need to embrace this, open ourselves up, find the right people, the right expertise, and the sky will be the limit. I mean, 5 years for FinFort, we lost 2 to COVID, we didn't do much, we couldn't roll out our strategy. I look at it and say, where could we have been if only we'd had the 2 COVID years? But that's not an excuse, we're still happy where we are. And again, as SMEs, you don't look at this as one goal, look at it as a journey. Even when you get better, our board required that we do the ISO certification. I remember looking at the board chair and saying, we're chasing numbers, we're chasing a strategy. I do not want to disrupt the team and say, how will you convince anyone else that your systems, your structures are standardized globally? You said you do not want trading on Ugandan standards, you need to do the certification. I took it as feedback from the board. We did, getting the team and looking at rewriting everything to match and making the changes, run through the process. And we got the certification, I think, in March of this year. Now, when we got it, it didn't even mean a lot to me. I was so tired of the entire process. And everyone was like, oh, you need to celebrate. Businesses like, sorry to use, but Airtel just got this 3 years ago, or so-and-so got this. And I'm like, oh, so that's what it means. But I was so tired, but probably we needed to do it. Now, after getting that is when I got the call from the lead arrangers in Kenya, because we just put it out on our socials, and probably they said, okay, these guys are ready. Now, I look back at that hard conversation with the board chair, where I said, you guys need to do this, and you need to do it now. And yeah, that's what just put independent experts at whichever field and for SMEs and as part of your boards, and the sky will be the limit.
Thank you, Daniel. So what I'm hearing, Daniel, is that going through the corporate governance process for the business, especially SME business, is like being pregnant. You have to put in the hard work to get to the baby. And like Warren Buffett says, you cannot expect, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's something to the effect that it takes 9 months to create 1 baby. You cannot expect to get 9 babies by making 9 women pregnant and expecting the baby in 1 month. It doesn't work that way. You still have to go through the 9 months. So there is some pain, and I think that's one of the challenges that SMEs face when they think about the pain that Daniel has just described for what it takes to get to that point where your corporate governance accountability partners, who are your board, are telling you we must engage in this particular activity to get you to that world-class global standard you're looking for. There is some pain involved. But now when you look at it, you're like, okay, it was painful, but it was worth it. So Jocelyn, I'm looking at you because in a family business setting, especially where it is a cross-generational family business, the founders are saying, hey, you've come with Harvard and you think Harvard is going to run the business. We have been, I know we've had this conversation. This business paid your fees. Who are you to now tell me that I should put a board on top of us, who are the owners and founders of this business, to tell us how to run our business? So if you can share your story, but also maybe other other stories you've had within the community. What are those hurdles you have to overcome to actually put these corporate governance structures in place? Because they are not easy hurdles to overcome.
Thank you, Jackie. But I want to make sure that before we leave this room or this particular discussion, that we promise ourselves that we're going to change our mindset about how we look at corporate governance. I kept hearing cost, pain. Please, we need, especially the Boardroom Masterclass, needs to debunk this myth. Because, like I said in my initial remarks, it is because of the way people are looking at it, like through that lens, that many people don't then embrace it. And it has, this connotation that it is expensive, that it is, for sure you will have to be humble, they will have to be, giving up some sort of control, And I really do believe if there's one thing that we should at least have as an objective, is to influence the changing of people's view on how corporate governance should be looked at and how it should fit into our thinking process for anyone who is looking to grow their business. I think I want to touch on something before I come to the hurdles, specifically around, still on my family business Crestform, and the reflections that I have, spent a lot of time, looking back and thinking, how could this have changed, right? And just to give you a quick history, Crestform was actually initially registered in 1984 by my late father. Unfortunately, he got shot somewhere around 1986 and left the country for about a year. So the actual operations were postponed, and so we only really started operations in 1987. And we're grateful that my dad lived long enough to at least, champion this venture that he had started, and he did that for about 4.5 years, and then he passed on from those complications from the gunshots. So for most people who know Crestform, the actual Crestform is really my mother and the team that my dad left behind at that time. They're the ones that, grew the company to the brand that most people are familiar with. Some of us have just recently started to try to add some value, so we can't take too much credit. But I will tell you that when I think back to that inception, and I think about, again, what I mentioned, the opportunity cost. Let me tell you what 1987 looked like. For those, me, I'm old enough to at least have a sense, we were importing a lot of products from Kenya. And also, those who were players in the manufacturing sector were very few. There was a handful. So there was, I would call them the pioneers in their sector. So you will hear of, the Mulwana Group, you'll hear of the Madivani Group. Those were pioneers of their individual sectors. And what that actually meant was that this was a virgin market. Because remember, you're coming from a low base. So you're starting off from, and it's just growing. And we went through explosive growth as a country in the 90s. Now, why am I taking you back to that point? So we are starting, 1987, Crestform starts, and let me tell you, when I say my parents minted money, I am not kidding. It is true. Anybody who dared to be a business person in the 80s and the 90s, the competition was just not there. So, what it really meant was you were just growing with the economy, and it was just a virgin market. So we would even sit back, my family would tell you how customers had to come. They would queue for mattresses, in terms of traders, wholesalers, and we, the champions of these sectors, really had the world at our feet, literally. But I would argue that is exactly the time corporate governance should have kicked in. Because had it kicked in at that time, then there are certain things that we just did not do for a long time. Something as simple as strategy formulation. What is our vision? My parents, when they got into this, initially it was to put bread on the table, literally. You're like, this is what we do, and we need to pay school fees, And if we if we could go back in time and actually switch on that corporate governance tool, I shudder to imagine what the world would have looked like for us. So the first issue is I really do want SMEs, because most SMEs are in sectors where either there is, it's either growth sector, there's maybe fewer players, or, you're entering into a place as a pioneer. And sometimes you get carried away, which is where we got. We got carried away with the initial success. The money was just coming. We didn't have to do anything. We just had to show up. Literally. Just show up, put on the lights, and life is good. But we forgot to understand that those who have done, business classes, there is what we call a life cycle of business. There's the early stage, and then you sort of move into the maturity of that industry. So if you have the right advisors, then you will start to actually plan ahead, because you will know that this success I have today, first of all, it's going to attract other people. How am I going to make sure that I am ready when that time comes? What is it that I need to be doing now strategically to position for that? And then you talked about all the other aspects of risks. We came to realize much later on that we left money on that table. That definition, it is so big, you can't imagine. We left money, we had leakages that we had lived with actually for a long time. And in fact, we know this. How? Because the people who worked for us, when we look at lifestyle audit, you're like, wow, I guess I built that too. Wow, I also built that as well, So those risk aspects, and of course they start to bite you later now when you get into the competitive world, because now the margins are full. You remember when you have the world at your feet, you're literally getting margins of, I don't even want to tell you, but it's big margins. It's like literally like 50% profit after tax, literally, like north of even. So, but now that shifts quickly as the sector matures. So, yes, if there's something I want to impart on others by sharing some of our stories, some of us who have gone through a couple of decades, and actually look back and say, we really left money on this table. We really left. That for me is, what a disappointment. I don't know how else I could put it. What a disappointment. So coming back to your question around hurdles. So yes, when I came in 2015, I actually came October 2014 and then transitioned February of 2015 to managing director. And actually, to be honest, I am probably one of the most reluctant second generation players ever. I had no intention of coming, absolutely. I can assure you, my mom begged me for 4 years to come back. Part of it was I was actually very successful. I had done pretty well for myself. I was actually in charge of strategy for Cummins on the African continent. I was hopping around first class, moving from everywhere, from Morocco, you name it, Egypt, you give me a place. I had projects. I had people reporting under me, Americans even. I was doing pretty well. I was being paid in good money, serious money. I didn't even know what to use my money for. It was a lot. So when my mom told me to come back to Uganda, I remember thinking, for what purpose? I don't understand. Because where I was going, as far as I was concerned, was actually fabulous. And I considered myself, global talent, and I had actually secured opportunities to work in the US and South Africa. And why should I come home? But I came home because actually, for those who don't know, my mom is a cancer survivor, and she was widowed when she was 41, and she really raised us for a big chunk of our formative years. And I was just guilty. I just thought, this poor woman, she needs support, honestly. So my plan was to come for 4 years. That was it. 4 years and I'm out of here. So then I fast forward, I come in and, I have a plan. And it was, I had the plan, 90-day plan. We had read the books, everything. And as for those who might know, we had the fire. So I was baptized by fire, like literally. I lost, I think, 6 kilos in 1 week. My assistant used to beg me to eat something because we were just running everywhere. And, people would tell you, what is your plan, and you're just running. MPs are running around you doing all sorts of things. But it was difficult. And, coming out of that experience of that fire and just thinking about how did we even get here, I wanted to go back to, what I needed to transition to. And so I immediately realized that I needed help. I realized that this job is bigger than I thought, right? Because there were things coming at me that I had not planned for and I could not actually envision. So we had a board, and actually we had borrowed some facilities from Stanbic small facilities, but we had borrowed some. And as most credit applications go, they will ask you, okay, what's your corporate governance structure? You put there, we also have a board. So I have this, they are independent also, they are there. But we were not meeting. There were no board meetings, huh? Never, not even one. Yeah? And at that point, we had been around, this is what, 2015, over 20 years. You understand? So then I decided, no, this had to change. But part of it was, initially it was on a selfish side, because I came in and I realized my team was not going to work well going forward. They had done a fantastic job to get us to where we were, but there were some changes that needed to happen. So the hurdle, the first hurdle for me was how to get my mother on board as as someone who had really been a significant co-founder. And the first thing I did was to look at the board that we had. Fortunately, we did have someone there that is of high regard. He is the late Fabian Tivaita, and those of you who don't know, he used to head East African Development Bank, but was a dear friend of my late dad. And really, we also consider that he did this work pro bono, because I don't think we could ever have paid him for what he did for us. But what I would say is that for those of us who are second generation, the first hurdle is building credibility with that first generation, so that whatever it is that you're putting on the table can be taken seriously, because they're stuck, they're literally stuck in this place that you're a child. The common phrase between my mom and I is that you like to spend, and I'm always like, Mom, she's like, you just like to spend, and part of it is she's like, you don't even understand how to make money. That's the underlying piece. Yeah? She's not saying, but that's what she's saying. And so anyway, so what I did was I quickly recognized that the late Tivaita would be a person of influence and someone who my mother really held in the highest of regard. So that was one of the strategic things that I did, was find people who you can basically lean on their credibility. And so I leaned on his credibility as somebody who was seasoned, somebody who understood this corridor much better than I did. As you mentioned, coming from those outside countries, people think, what do you know about Uganda? And it really worked very well. So that was the first hurdle. But I would say that the other hurdle is, yes, okay, now you've started meeting. I think Daniel mentioned around humility because you're bringing things. So most of us, family-run businesses, we look at the board as though it's a place that you go to inform, not a place that you consult, not a place that, or a set of people that you actually include in your decision-making process. So one of the hurdles now was also to empower the board, because there's first getting the board and now it is there. But now, can it actually be empowered to do its job? And I think that one is a harder muscle, and I will pause it there for a minute. But I would say that the biggest message is, a good starting point, especially for those of us who are probably champions of change in our organizations, is to understand, look at yourself, understand where you sit in respect to your audience. In my case, I understood very quickly that I didn't have the credibility with my mom for what I was pushing, and therefore I needed to lean on credibility of those that she held in high esteem, and that is exactly what I did, and it worked out pretty well. Thank you.
Thank you. So please tell whoever is saying, oh, am I going to attend? Tell them, Bane, they are splitting matter on this boardroom masterclass. If you are not in the room, please don't complain about not being in the room, because at least for the people who are online, this is something you can do as you're going about your business. But thank you so much, Jocelyn, for being so open and sharing those stories, because I think they are real. I could see the nods in the room. Online, I can't see you, but at least in the room, I could see people relating and saying, that I know about that. I know what that feels like. Another spate of recognitions. This is people who are with us online. We have Stella Keshubi. She's the company secretary at Standard Chartered Bank. We are oh, she's here. Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm mixing up the things. Annabelle, don't kill me. But I think for sure online, we have Japheth Kato. He's the chairman of JKC Consulting and a board member of the Central Bank. He's attending virtually, and he's one of the partners that we had recognized earlier. And then, of course, Hajat Seviala, she has religiously attended all the Boardroom Masterclass sessions from day one. So when we talk about someone who is committed to continuous learning, she's right here in front of us. We need to take some questions. Those of you who are in the room, if you can spot Annabelle, I don't know where Annabelle is. Is she inside? She's there at the back. Please raise your hand. Let Annabelle come to you. If you can write it down, then we can address it. But we do have a couple of questions that have come in from our audience online. And the first is from Priscilla Seruka, and she says, when SMEs are registering, they always put names of board members, but this board is never quite operational. SMEs are quite closely held, and founders are everything to the company and are a bit suspicious or skeptical of an independent board to their baby being business. They also fear that they have to pay board members, or they fear that their ideas are going to be stolen. And I think this is what Jocelyn has been speaking to. How can we get SME owners to be brought to believe that it is okay to have a board? So that is the first question from Priscilla. I believe some of it has already been answered, but if there's anything else that our panelists can add, and I will pass these pieces of paper along. Then the other is from Nagai Zalika, and she says, what criteria can SMEs use to appoint board members on either the advisory or executive boards? And then there are specific ones for you, Daniel, and a specific one for you, Sarah. And these are both from someone called Aramanzan Mandana. For Daniel, what are the major structures in corporate governance that you're talking about? I think they're referring to what you had mentioned, what you have done for FinFort. So they want a little bit more information on that. And then for Sarah, what does it involve to benefit from the DFF facility? I think they're looking for the criteria, who can come through. I don't know who wants to start first. In the room, please, comments, questions. Annabelle is ready for you. If you can just write it down. I believe you all have notepads and pens in front of you. Please let us know who you are, unless you want to remain anonymous. But if you could let us know who you are. In the interim, allow us to continue to recognize our sponsors for this particular edition of the Boardroom Masterclass, which is on Mastering Corporate Governance for SME Success. That is the Deal Flow Facility under FST Uganda. We also have ABI Finance, and I see the team in the room. And we also have Standard Chartered Bank. We have several representatives both in the room and online. And then, of course, our ongoing partners for the Boardroom Masterclass, which is JKC Consulting, Covey Group, Legomac, and Stedman Global. Without them, this would have not happened. So let us recognize them for making this happen. Anybody ready to go with any of the questions?
Okay, I'll start just to talk to what it takes to take part in the DFF. So the DFF, like I mentioned, works very closely with business enterprises, usually in the growth stage. That means you're no longer a startup. And in most cases, we work with businesses looking to raise a minimum of $500,000 and above to be able to scale their businesses. So if you're that business and you would like us to work with you, excuse me, to prepare you, please visit the FSD Uganda website. And under the Deal Flow Facility page, you will be able to register. Once you've registered, we will get back to you and we'll start the journey. We'll have a discussion with you, come and do a due diligence on your business, identify the gaps that your business may have or areas of improvement. We'll also tell you whether you are ready to take the next and scale, or it will take some time. In some cases, you find that businesses have major gaps, and so it takes a while for them to be able to close those gaps and be ready to start to bring in other different stakeholders to work with them to scale their businesses. So basically, it's just, you can visit our website, that's FSD Uganda website, and somewhere on the menu, you'll be able to see the deal flow facility page, and you'll see the registration, which is just a click away. Maybe I can also just touch briefly on the question to do with how you can pick board directors. Just thinking through some of the businesses that we've worked with, you find that the board directors are management. In some cases, you find that it's just a group, the board directors are a group of friends and relatives. And, you know, like Jocelyn rightly said, some of these are put together, but they never meet. There's no single meeting that they've ever held. They are just on paper for purposes of getting loans and just looking like they have a structure in place. However, we've slightly talked about some of the benefits that come from formalizing and having corporate governance structures in place. We've also discussed the opportunity cost of not having corporate governance structures in place. And so when we are looking to select who sits on the board, I think it's important to look at industry experts, someone who's actually going to come in and bring value. So usually that person already knows about your business in one way or the other. They kind of know the industry. So I don't think they will be taking information from you to also copy the business that you have, you know, that you're doing. But they will actually bring so much value into the business. Additionally, if, for example, you are a family, you could have a shareholder representative who would have the interests of the family or the shareholders on the board. But having these independents, especially experts in the industry, or usually as a business, you will have looked at which skills you would like to have on the board. You could be the founder or the CEO, and you really don't understand anything to do with digitization, as an example. And so you want to look for someone who's strong in that area. Excuse me, sorry. Sorry about that. You would like to look for someone in that area who would actually be able to bring in the expertise and also be able to provide guidance, strategic guidance to the team on the management team in that area. So I would really urge you to not only look for friends and relatives, but to actually look for people on the outside who are industry experts that would bring value to the business. Over.
I want to build on what Sarah's point is around that criteria. And I think Sarah did touch very well on the hard skills and a bit on the soft, but I want to delve a little bit more on those soft skills that you touched on. To me, I think, you know, for sure, the individuals have to be experts, you know, that basically when you look at them coming to your room or to your table, I always say, who is sitting at your table? When they sit on your table, they're adding, you know, in places where, I think you mentioned even before, you do a gap analysis at FSD, you know, they're filling in the gaps that you probably don't have as the management or, you know, as the team that is running this business. So that's for sure has to be ticked off. They have to be experts. The other piece on the hard side or hard skills is they have to have experience in where you want to go. So you remember you are hopefully a growth business and you have a vision that you want to become more than where you are. And what you really are looking for is that, yes, you have experience, but you have experience, you know, working in maybe a larger entity and therefore can bring best practice at this table that we are, you know, you're trying to basically build. Now, on the soft skills, and this one is so crucial because I have had the opportunity, so I do sit on these 4 boards that I'm on today, but actually 5, but the other boards that I sat on before, and I have seen truly what we would call a typical bad board experience, where basically, you know, people are experts in their area, and when they come into the room, because they have a weakness when it comes to their ability to engage on difficult conversations, you know, to be able to speak up and say, you know what, I don't actually agree with that point of view. And let me tell you, let me push it through, you know what I mean, that particular disagreement that I'm putting on the table. Having someone on your table needs to be somebody who is really going to add value. And the only way you can get that value is, one, of course, they should know what they're talking about, but they should also lean in and actually really, truly engage, truly. And on that engagement side also, this person has to have integrity. You talked about, I think the one question was around people worrying, my ideas will be stolen, the integrity aspects of this individual obviously have to also be looked at. And, you know, for me, integrity is also fairly broad, but one of the things that it touches on is that you will do the things that you say you will do, you know? So not just about the values of you're not going to steal things and all that other stuff. If you've signed up, and I am very committed as a board member on all the boards that I sit on, and I can assure you I'm extremely busy because of it, but I am committed. And when I'm going for a board meeting, I will read. If it means I stay up until 1 o'clock, you can bet I'm going to read those books. So now, the question is, if you're going to sign up these directors, you have to ask yourself, you know, is this director going to have an integrity in terms of, 1, they will, you know, hold my material with care, right? 2, they're not going to steal my idea and start running off into one direction. 3, that they will show up, you know, they will show up because they committed to support. And I can tell you there were boards where I sat on and people were exceptional in terms of their CV, exceptional, but they did not show up. You understand? They did not show up. And that, for me, is a person that has no integrity, and that person has no place in that room. So I would just wanted to add that as you look at, you know, what you're looking for, please don't get stuck on the hard skills. Make sure you're vetting. Just like when you're hiring someone. You know, we go out, you put out, you know, you're looking to recruit people. You get 100 people that meet the criteria on paper, but we always go through the next stage, isn't it? You engage and say, is there a fit here? You try to assess, you do a background check. The same is true for the board director. Don't get clouded with, oh, she's done this and done that and done that. No, no, no. What is her way of operating or his way of operating? Because that is going to be very important. Thank you.
Just to pick on from the question from Aramanzan, what are the major corporate structures in corporate governance that you're talking about? Now, I guess this is specific to yes, it's addressed to me, so it's specific to Finfort. Now, at Finfort, we straight away incorporated a supervisory board. Now, initially, we thought it should be 3 members, but then in trying to design their charter, we noticed 3 members, quorum would be 3 members, so we increased it to 4 members. And we looked at what we needed then. We went for an expert at economics to look at our operating environment, who joined in and as chair. And generally, to know we operating in this market, there's a lot of trends. We probably have an outlook around 7 years, at least what the economic policy in Macquarie is a professor at economics. So he joined us, but basically that was the value add, and also a very high person of integrity and also command respect amongst us all and the rest of the board members. Then like I said, we looked at someone who had experience in marketing. We needed to position the brand to be attractive to all kinds of stakeholders. So we went for someone who had done marketing in Uganda and Sub-Saharan Africa at an international bank. And that she gracefully allowed to serve on our board then. Then we also went for an investment banker. I was executive director for Lions Head then. It's a global investment bank out of London. that was looking at Sub-Saharan Africa, at Africa and Middle East. And we were really looking at where we wanted to go, just to give us guidance on where the capital is and what we needed to do to access that capital. And then we looked at an economist who is working for ZEPRI as a business economist, looking at the COMESA region, and had an insight. And this really was to look at the outlook. I mean, we didn't want to be just Uganda. We needed to structure in such a way that we're able to scale and go beyond the borders. I mean, as East African community gets set up and borders become erased, you have to have that outlook. And then recently we came up with, I mean, the board guided you saying all the things you want to leverage technology to scale, but we have a gap at the board. So we had a board meeting last Saturday and an annual general meeting as well. So one additional resource was added, an expert at information technology who is working with one of the telcos, looking after 16 markets, in charge of payments, just to give us that the innovation that we need as we take on this market. Now, away from just the board and the expertise at the board, we also, from the word go, have retained an advisory firm. Now, there is a lot of work that can disrupt an SME or a business if you're doing it internally. We've retained, it's the other house, we've retained them from day one. They do a lot of the market surveys. They look at the competition landscape. They'll prepare us for any funding opportunities. And I think other than the board, it's one team that really we have had conversations with. I mean, they're on the outside, they only come in for specific tasks, but it's been also it's one structure that we've learned to lean on because it's also has experts and it's doing for a lot of clients as well, similar work. So we're not unique. So they'll tell us this no longer cuts it. You need to drop this, look here, focus here. So we've had that structure as well. Then we also put in place a lot of processes and also wrote a lot, documented a lot of processes, put in place structures in people. I mean, you put the finance team, and we have a detailed model which triggers who comes in when. At some stage, you'll be outsourcing maybe the marketing function. If you hit a certain portfolio size, it requires that you bring that in-house. Same as the legal services. Initially, it was the same with the finance, but then it required that it comes in at a certain area. And then also the numbers, not just one resource. You say if you have this kind of revenue, you need to keep increasing the numbers here. And it's all modeled together with the advisory firm and signed off by the board. So also, not just writing the processes, we need to have them checked. We need to have whatever you've documented verified to see if it's up to world standard. That's why there's need for the certification. At Finfort, we've done the ISO, International Standards Organization certification, just to ensure we're not having very good things on the inside, but when we're not competitive on the outside. So we've done that with the guidance of the board. We attained the certification, and yes. And also other structures like having an independent audit, which, I mean, is not very interesting conversations. It's hard conversations, but they'll ask the questions, and if you do not give very satisfactory responses, you receive a call from the board chair inviting you for a meeting. So, I've got to fix this before I go and meet the board chair and all. And yes, we've not yet zeroed down into committees. It's work in progress. Now that we have an addition to the board, we'll be able to put the specific committees because the board work generally as a whole and handling quite a bit of everything. But looking at the journey, and this is what I already say, it's not that you put something in place and it ends there. We did the ISO. The expectations for next year are harder, which requires us again to sort of improve, to do away with papers and processes that can be automated. We need to have it automated. And it's a journey, and we have very clear timelines that we're working on. So these structures, like she's already said, could appear like pain or costly, but they're really important in making you competitive, making you attractive, also building trust with a lot of stakeholders. I always joke with our regulator that we suffer from over-regulation. And why? Every person they have, they say, we need to, any stakeholder they visit, they say, one of the companies to visit is Finfort. One, we close to them, but they know everything will be fine. So we have so many visits, but I've allowed, and I say, it seems we live with that. Keep telling them, I think we over-regulated because you're is in our face, and they say, we know, but you do things the right way, and sometimes we have partners, and we want to see them, or we want them to see a mode of what can be replicated or what people should be doing. I mean, most of our competition is foreign, with a lot of bucks, with a lot of money, but we're not looking at that as an hindrance. We're taking the lessons and tracking, using these structures to track where we are, what we're gaining, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, how we position ourselves to eat into their market share, and each day it's a different conversation. We know it's a journey, and you set some targets or some goals, and people hit the targets, and as you're patting yourselves on the back, you're like, okay, so now what? And they're like, I think Daniel just doesn't appreciate. He's already thinking of what next. I'm like, no, I really do, but this is a journey. We made baby steps at the start. We set smaller goals. You get them, then you look at the bigger picture and let the sky be the limit. I mean, we can do so much if only we could open up our minds and lean on these processes, on these structures to help us grow and be the best we can be.
Thank you, Daniel. I feel like we're in a mini MBA class. So if you're not taking notes, you might have to ask your neighbor, so what were the key points, key takeaways you got from what our panelists are sharing? But really, really valuable insights, and we can see the comments online are coming through, and they're all very appreciative of what you have been able to share with them. I'd like to recognize Moses Mwase. He's a partner at Legomark Advocates. He is in the room, as well as Grace Jethro Kavma. He's the managing partner at JKC Consulting and chairman of NCBA Bank Uganda. Thank you. These two gentlemen are part of the organizations that make the Boardroom Masterclass. You might be thinking, why are you doing favorites? But that's why they are being introduced. I believe we had one person in the room who had a question. How many are we now? There's a mic. If you can raise your hand so that Annabelle can come to you, so that we can also take some questions or comments from the room. For the people online, we haven't forgotten you. I still have 3 more questions with me. Keep them coming. We are 30 minutes away almost from the end of our session, but let's have those questions. Please introduce yourself so that we know who you are, and then ask your question.
Sure, right, yeah. So my name is Quresh Fida Hussain. I'm the founder and director of Zara Food Industries Limited. Thank you very much for all the candid conversations. I think we'll... So I'm sorry. Yeah, so thank you again. I definitely will go back with a lot to think about. And I think we've agreed that... I've understood that as a startup, maybe the board is a little bit too early. And so my question is, I'm a true believer of the board, but what is the next sort of best thing when you're not there yet? And then I also had a very sort of a technical question. What's the distinction between an advisory board and a real board? Because both of those have been talked about, and I'm not very clear as to what the differences are. Thank you, Quresh.
Thank you. So I think we can take 3, and then we'll let our panelists answer.
Thank you very much. My name is Harriet Sanyu Muonge. I'm a managing partner of Molisan Consults Limited. I had written it down. I can read. What are some of the best practices in corporate governance that SMEs can adopt to strengthen the board's effectiveness? It would be good to get some of those as a start, so that they can get running as they pick up the rest. Thank you.
Okay, you've been looking at my questions. Those were some of the questions we're wrapping up, but it's fantastic that you've raised it.
Allow me to stand. My name is Hajat Sebiala, Hajat Green. And yes, evergreen. Even my blood is green, actually. Yes. My question goes to Jocelyn. Actually, I have two questions. I've been in board work for over 20 years. I just want to understand from you, when you say they don't show up, can you break down the showing up for me? What is it that one can do to show up? Actually coming to the board or something beyond that? Then number two, how do we, at appointment stage, how do we gauge one's way of operating besides the hard skills? Thank you so much.
Okay, I think we can take those three first, answer them, and then do one more round in the room and get back to the ones that we had already received online. I don't know who wants to take. Sarah, do you want to jump into any one of them?
Okay, I'll just talk about the difference between the advisory and the board of directors. I think when we started off, we talked about the different stages, the growth stages of a business. And we started off with the startups. So when you look at startups, usually, I know we've been asked not to say it's expensive, but usually the founders find that corporate governance is expensive because they think they have to pay the board members for their time. But you can actually have an advisory board. This board could actually be a group of experts that are willing to provide advice to the founder and the business at no cost in some cases, or they would also be able to be available sometimes in a very ad hoc way, because, you know, as a startup, waiting for maybe a whole quarter to be able to consult may not be feasible. However, when you now professionalize and now you have a full board in place, there's a structure in place. There's a full structure in place. Usually that board will have a board charter that talks about how often they should meet, what their terms are. And at this point, you are professionalizing. So just the way you have segregated roles and responsibilities at the management level, you've actually put in place terms and conditions or guiding themes for the board of directors. So they are more or less the same, both the advisory and the board of directors. It's just that when we talked about it, and we looked in particular at the different growth levels of the business, our suggestion was that as a startup, especially when the founder is involved in every aspect of the business, that advisory aspect is what would work best at that level. And it would kind of also be the corporate governance that a startup would have in place. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yes,
You want to add?
maybe just supplement what Sarah just presented. Also, usually one major difference is the other board, or you call it the real board, may have fiduciary duty. They could sign off on behalf of the company as directors of the company, while the advisory or supervisory board may not have fiduciary duty. Yeah, that's also one major difference. I want also to touch the question, what are some of the best practices in corporate governance that SMEs can adopt to increase the board effectiveness? I mean, just to summarize it is you need to empower the board. You need to get the right people, the brilliant people, the experts, but empower them and let them do the role, the job you've gotten them to do. Because what would be the use if you brought in brilliant people and you can't let them offer the guidance, offer the control, offer the innovation, it would be a total Western failure. So you need to empower them to, and also it's best if they're independent. You let it be an independent board, so they're able to tell you everything as it is and not what you want to hear. So that independence is also very important. And like Sarah said, the charter that is well documented, that will guide the engagements, their meetings, and yeah, that's some of the best practice.
Before I go to the two questions that you had to raise, I want to talk about that, just to build on, Daniel, your point around that best practice. I think for me, of course, that composition of the board, you know, that has to be looked at very, very clearly, because you want to make sure, like he has said, that one, you appointed people that you actually really believe can add value. I mean, you have to start from there, because if you're just getting people just to check off a box, then we are in trouble, right? Then you yourself are failing because you know you're not going to entrust in them to do anything. And then obviously the other best practice is around the structures that you put in place. So, you know, when we talked about the real board, you know, those traditional committees, they're there for a reason. It's a best practice. These things have been researched and they actually add value. So you want to make sure that those structures are, you know, adhered to and that you actually are putting them in place. So if you're not, at least have a plan to work towards that. And then the last one he mentioned was empowerment. That empowerment, because I want Daniel's point on humility. You talked about that earlier on in your opening remarks. The challenge for a lot of us who are running businesses, the business is our baby. You know, we feel that we are the ones who wake up in the morning. We're the ones who even started the thing in some cases. We're the ones who have hustled. We're the ones who know how to make this thing run. That is the truth, if we're being honest. And the problem with that is that underlying in there is that we're really not that humble when we come to talk about our business with the board. But it goes back to my initial piece around, you know, when I was a strategy consultant, we used to talk about the decision-making matrix. And we have in there, you know, an acronym called RACI. So who is responsible, who is accountable, who is consulted, and who is informed. Now, what you find in some, you know, board conversations is really the management or the founder or the MD, they want to walk into that room to inform. In fact, for them, they're looking for endorsement. That is really the truth, you know. And I know I have actually challenged in my own, you know, committees that I sit on for other banks. I always am quick to ask management. So exactly what is happening here? Are you informing us? Are we being, you know, consulted? What exactly is this conversation? So I think that's something that, you know, the appointees of directors have to ask themselves. This board that you're putting in place, are you going to consult it? Or are you just going there to inform it? And the challenge is, if you're just going to inform it, the truth is you have already beat yourself in the foot. You're not going to get the value that you really need. You do need to be on the consultation side. You do need to make sure that they have some level of ownership for what's going to come through, and therefore the passion they bring into the room has to be clear. Now, the other piece is, you know, there's always a topic, and I would encourage, I did the Effective Director Program at Strathmore, courtesy of NCBA, one of the best trainings that I would encourage directors to consider that is locally available. And part of what they delve in is dysfunctional boards. And that is a topic that you want to pay attention to. You know, when you have situations where people are defensive, I've been in rooms where, you know, the managing director is getting defensive because people are pushing on certain hot topics and people are getting hot and bothered and they feel insulted. So the first issue is, you know, for those of us who are in management, and I am in management myself, please, you have to wear the hat of humility. You have to walk in there and know, I'm going to have a conversation with these experts, and I want to consult them. I want to be open-minded, and I want to engage. And if you are not ready for that, then please, you're not really taking advantage of this corporate governance. Now, to turn quickly to the questions that were asked to me around, what do I mean, you know, board members not showing up? There are a couple of ways in which it plays out. The initial ones I mentioned was engagement in meetings. And, you know, this plays out in terms of if someone is even just silent, like literally. If someone has come in, it's like you're an observer now. You are just seated there. People are passenger. You know, people are talking. For you, you just sit. That is a problem because, again, you're not, you know, doing your duty. And I always tell even my own team, where is your care of duty for this position that someone has given you, you know, whether they're paying you or not, you signed up. Where is your care of duty? You cannot just simply sit there. That I think for me is utterly a no-no. Now, granted, I'm an extrovert, so talking comes easy for me. I get it. But I still think you must find a way to engage. The engaging, what does that actually look like? It looks like even simply probing. Do you know there's so many times someone, just by probing, can really open a line of thought that actually, you know, either management had missed it or some other board member would then piggyback off of that, and then it becomes this whole opportunity that actually has been missed just by probing. Ask questions and then challenge. Be bold enough to challenge what's being presented. So for me, I think those are some engagements. Be proactive. Engagement for me is around being proactive. In all the boards I sit on, I always feel, you know, a responsibility. I guess maybe it's how I have been trained, my duty of care. You know, somebody has entrusted me. There could be other people sitting in this seat I'm in. They've entrusted me with this position. And I always challenge myself. So what is the so what? You know, so what did I bring to the table? And because of putting that hat on, everywhere I go, I'm always thinking about, oh, I've seen something. By the way, maybe this could be of value to this board that I'm on. So things that I have done include introductions, proactively. I don't have to wait to be nudged or asked. Proactively introducing, proactively identifying and saying, have you seen this opportunity? Have you considered? I don't have to wait for someone to ask. And I think that's what I would like to see in a good board member. Then, of course, actual attendance. Can you just be there? You need to be present. I mean, that just goes without saying. And then, please, read the material. You know, I've also been at fault. I know at the bank, you know, we get like a heap of information to sift through. And sometimes we don't get it 100%. But at least show that you have made serious effort to go through the material and to actually engage the material and engage management and add that value. So for me, showing up is different aspects. And it's not just about you attended the meeting. That's not enough. It's what you did in the meeting. It's what you did outside of the meeting. Were you thinking about, were you owning this responsibility you've taken on? At the appointment stage, I was thinking about how, you know, for all the boards that I have the privilege to sit on, what that has looked like. And I'll tell you, typically it starts with somebody shares my name to this, you know, perspective where the shareholders, and it varies depending, you know, on which board you're being appointed to. But I've had the privilege of actually being properly interviewed, even if it has not been called an interview. And I actually think it's the best thing because you are bringing a person to your table, so to speak. And so you have to make sure that, one, there is a fit, cultural fit, you know. That just has to go without mentioning. You have to feel some sort of chemistry, so to say. The second one is, you know, you really want to check that what you have heard and been told about this individual is really truly what they really are. So you ask them, of course, typically, you know, to tell their story and then see if you like what you hear, right? So I think everything that you would do traditionally for any recruitment, I think also plays into this one. I talked about earlier on around the due diligence. Do your homework. Who is this person? You know, truly, where are they coming from? What have they done in the past? Do they have a good record? So, you know, I've seen that at least some of the boards I've sat on have been very intentional about, you know, checking through that recruitment and being careful in that appointment stage, because ultimately you are going to or should actually entrust and also yield some level of power to the board. And before you do that, you have to be confident that these are the people you want to yield that responsibility to.
Okay. Thank you, Jocelyn. Again, very practical tips on how to go about actually incorporating corporate governance in your business? We have so many questions coming in from our online audience, and thank you very much. Keep them coming. We are really tight for time, so we won't be able to go through each and every one of them. So I have picked out a couple that speak to some of the things which I think would be interesting for all of you. The first question is from Governor Sel Vuzi Joseph, and his question is that many SMEs lack formal succession plans, creating uncertainty about the future leadership of the business and potentially jeopardizing business continuity. So he's asking, what is our take on this? And if you're thinking about your board, how can they play a part in making sure there's proper succession planning for businesses? The other, I'm going to combine because I think they kind of speak to the same thing. When we're talking about behavior change, there is it's called a social adoption curve. So the first part of that curve is you inform me. So today we have done a lot of information about what corporate governance can do for a business in helping to ensure what Jocelyn talked about, that sustainable profitability and growth. Then the second stage is show me. Now that I have the information, hold my hand and walk the journey with me. Don't just throw the information at me and let me figure out in the dark. And to some degree, we have done that. I am calling on the partners, our sponsors, and any other interested stakeholders, now that we know that this is a real and valid need for our SMEs. Can we co-create programs that actually walk the journey with our SMEs? Let's not just say, oh, you need a board. Okay, so what? Show me how I can actually incorporate this board into my day-to-day activities. And then the last part of that curve is make me. Now, if you have informed, you have shown, and there is still no momentum, we go legal. Put some legislation in place that says if you are SMEs at a particular level in your growth, you must have a board, and a functional board that is actually doing its work. So I'm combining a couple of questions which speak to this area, where they are saying, should we now consider some sort of legal or regulatory intervention that requires and mandates SMEs to have some form of corporate governance in their operations? I don't know whether our panelists can answer this question, to be honest, but maybe they can share experiences of what this looks like, maybe in other places or their own personal interactions. But that's a question that has come from a couple of our audience members. I think we will probably handle that, then we'll have to go into what you want to use as your closing remarks. So, in no particular order. One is about succession planning and how the board fits into that. And the other is about, should we mandate corporate governance for SMEs?
Thank you, Jackie. Let me just take the one for succession planning. This is very critical to the sustainability of any business. And what we've done at FinFort, we've for every role as part, and it's also part of the ISO certification, there's an understudy for every role. I remember when we just started, I could not take a holiday, or if I was on holiday, I would have to have my my laptop close by. But since then, we've been able to put an understudy at every role. Also, with the board's guidance, we enrolled for the Stanford Seed Business Transformation Program with the CEO and 15 members of the team. Now, what this has done, there's a program where each person really puts in place what they aspire, how they aspire to progress in the company, and what steps they are taking. Now, for my role, the board, for my role, there is clearly 2 or 3 people that have been earmarked at and different levels, different generations, because you want to move from a Moses to a Joshua. Is it Joshua? Forgetting the Bible, but yes, there has to be progress, not from Daniel to another Daniel, same thinking. So the board has been clear, someone younger, and then another person still at a level lower. And we've taken this down to HR, where we say, if you're hiring an investment officer, you see them as a chief executive maybe in 7, 8 years. If not, then don't hire them. We've taken that down, and we're seeing the level of talent coming through. And as the company grows, I mean, people find different disciplines and move to different sectors. But by and large, we're able to move on. Then also through that, our Stanford Seed program, there is very clear, honest feedback on what people are looking to do, and also what you need to do as a leader to help them progress. Now, it's hard feedback because it also points out the shortcomings of the leadership, and they give it to you the way it is in the American fashion. They say it the way it is. And but one thing I've come to appreciate is that feedback is a gift. You receive it, make the changes, because it's sad if this baby that you've burnt hours, spent sleepless nights, burned the midnight oil to put in place structures, goes with you. It would be a total failure. You can only be successful once there is a succession plan after you. And I always say I do not want, I want, and even us, tell us, give yourself 5 years, what are you going to do next? So maybe I'll sit on some board committee and offer guidance, then, okay, who will step in your shoes after 5 years? And who else below them? So you have that in plan, with a clear plan of what they need to be exposed to, if it's kind of information, and specific trainings that they need to undergo to ensure there is sustainability of the business. It's sort of future-proofing. I like that phrase, like tomorrow. You could be doing so well today, but what happens tomorrow? I mean, we've seen some of the best businesses go with the founders, which is sad. So you've got to put the work in now. Look at tomorrow. Change is inevitable. You could. I mean, anything can happen. So you need to. The business should be able to outlive for generations. So you need to do the work today and train, or if you like empower the team also below. Like you need to delegate, give tasks, monitor, advise, but also let them bring their creativity to the table. Because if you're hiring bright people and you want them to be a mirror of you, then you're failing. You need to let them do tasks their way and bring the innovation. And you'd be amazed at how a lot of different ways can be done to achieve results much quicker than you even imagined. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. I don't know whether you want to add something on succession. The legal question, to be honest, you can attempt, but I'm not holding you accountable.
Okay, I actually had a point wanted to add on the succession plan and how the boards can actually make a difference for companies. And I think when I think about some of the boards that I sit on, and I do chair the Human Capital Board for NCBA, where GJK is my chairman, and I'm honored to have you sitting right in front of my eyesight. Thank you for being there. But I will say that it really starts with, from the board side, helping management, or the MD, if I would call that senior person, to build a strong executive team, a high-performing team. And what really that would really entail is everything from identifying or supporting the identification of talent, supporting on the development of that talent, and then obviously the performance review aspects. And why I say that is, you want to have that bench strength and not it be just one identified successor, because as we've seen, really good talent does move around. So you can't sort of have just everything in one, in sort of, I have identified this person for this role, this other one, because what if they leave, right? And then you're kind of stuck. And what we want to mean with high-performing team, We want a team that is working cohesively together, a team that actually, yes, if you're a CFO, but if you're in manufacturing, you have a good understanding of what happens in production. You have a good understanding of what's happening in sales and marketing. Because when you pay attention and you look at, most of the CEOs that are out there, whether it's Uganda Breweries, a lot of, big corporations, when you look at what was their CV, some will have come from, I remember Cummins in particular. Actually, the Tim Soso, who was the CEO when I was recruited, was previously head of human resource. And then the one that followed him, Tom Lineberger, was head of finance, as an example. So the truth is they can come from different places, but to be able to grow into that role, it can only be if they were sitting on a team that was high performing, that they were working with collective responsibility, that they had, a way of infusing across board a good understanding of the business operations. So where the board plays a role is, like I've mentioned, the identification aspects, making sure that these kind of people can actually, I always say, recruit for the next role, not just for the role that you're recruiting. How much, leg room does this person have? Can they grow to be much more than what you're looking at in the short term? So very important to consider to ensure that that succession plan is built from day one. On the question on legal, I want to take this one. I'm a strong believer that it's very important to do things because you want to do them. Because when you understand why and you feel passionate about what you're trying to do, then you will put your all in that thing. When it's mandated for you, you will find, position, you will find people checking off boxes, and then it will be pointless anyway, because people didn't really come to the table because they wanted. But I also want to pause for a second on this one. We need to take a minute and look at Uganda and the history of Uganda and where we are. If you look and you did a census on most of the businesses that are operating here, you'll be shocked. Most businesses are actually either still first generation or just transitioning to second generation. We are fairly young, especially when you compare us to our peers in the region where they've had more stability for much longer periods. And so let's not also be too hard on ourselves in terms of, why don't we look more like the Kenyans who are a lot more professional about, things and all of that. Most of those businesses, if you look at Uganda Bati, which is part of Safao Group, and you look at how long, if you go on their website, you'll be overwhelmed. You're like, whoa, we're talking, over 5 decades. So of course they should be where they are in terms of how they look at their business. So yes, but that doesn't mean we should use that as an excuse. I'm just saying that it just gives you context. And it just means that there is work. We have to do some work, and we should try to avoid waiting for so many people to be bad examples. And I think where we should focus our energy is actually on what we're doing here, sensitization. Because what we really want is we want people to come to the table because they feel, they buy into what we're sharing, they understand it before, because most times people, they've decided on this corporate governance thing, but they don't understand it. So I urge everyone to, if you're in business, first start by doing your own homework. Do your homework. Don't put your biases and assumptions on the side. Do some reading. And then talk to those who are living it in other areas before you start being biased about, it's expensive. Oh my God, I don't know. I don't want to give this person my ideas. Take a minute. So I think the effort should be around sensitization. But the other piece that I would ask the organizers to also consider is to hold sessions where these SMEs have the opportunity to learn from others that have walked their path. Because ultimately, one of the things that I learned very early on when I took on my role is that whole aspect of credibility. Who is telling me what to do? Do you even really understand, what I'm going through? Or you're just a subject matter expert because you have read it, you probably have a PhD in it, you're a consultant. But for me, I'm the hustler, Me, I'm the one running up and down. I know what life looks like when I have to make my numbers. So I think there is power in building this piece around sensitization, allowing for these SMEs to learn from others, both actually highlighting failures that these other corporates might have gone through, and also, of course, successes of why actually they should really look at corporate governance through a different lens as opposed to just saying it's a cost. It really, please, it is not a cost. It is an opportunity to unleash your full potential. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jocelyn. I know, Rita, we are trying to ambush you to help us deal with that legal question, and I don't know whether you're ready for us. I know I have been a bit unfair to you in the room. If you're willing to give us 5 more minutes, maybe we can do one more round, 3 more questions in the room, so that you also have a chance to ask those burning questions, because the first time we did the round, there were 5 hands and we took 3. I don't know whether the 2 people, your questions have been answered. No. So there is one more after Rita has spoken, if there's one more, and then here in the front, and then we shall bring it to a close and allow our panelists to give us their closing remarks. Joanna Bila, we see you. She's the corporate company secretary at ABI Finance. Again, please give applause to our sponsors and partners for this masterclass. Rita, are you ready, or should you want to speak last after these other 2 people have? Okay, all right. So a mic will come to you. And then we have the 2 ladies with their questions. So the legal question was, should we wait for corporate governance to be mandated by law for SMEs? Or, as Jocelyn said, should we come to this willingly?
Okay, I'll take a stab at it just because my former board chair insisted that I do it. Regulation has never really worked for corporate governance. The reason is, and I think Jocelyn touched on that, the real issue with corporate governance is behavioral and attitudes. So America tried it. It didn't work too well for them. The codes that we have in place, I think the 2 that are particularly good is OECD and King. King 4 is particularly good because it focuses on outcomes. What is it you want to become if you're a great company? So there are 4 outcomes: ethical leadership, legitimacy, the real issues. And King's approach is to say, rather than regulate and say, if you don't do this, there's going to be a problem, moving away from comply or explain, King actually says, apply and explain. Tell us how this is going to change how you're doing things. I think for SMEs, a lot of the conversations today have tied into something quite important that IFC already has done a lot of work on. And I don't know, I kept listening to, I think it's Sarah. I wondered if that's the model she was using. If you look at that model, it says, what we want to do is add value for you at every stage of your growth. And I think that's where the world is going. I don't think regulation would help, particularly not for SMEs. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Fiona Nwamanya. I am the CFO at Rocket Health, and I'm glad to mention that we've benefited from the DFF program. We were matched last year with 3 different investors, and we went through the process. My question really is about, many people think of the board as being a grilling room, especially for finance executives. How can we make SMEs and even potential board members here know that a company, yes, for a long time can be, when you're an owner and you're working in it, most of the time maybe you're focusing on the numbers, or the people you bring in from outside are focused on the numbers. What's our top line? What's our net base? But there are other things in the business, other areas where actually the board should focus their energies or support to drive the numbers, if I should say. And in this era where we are, how do you, okay, so when you have like a crisis, in this era where we are, board members get to hear about it on social media. How do you make the relationship between executives and the board less of a 1 in 3 months thing? Like, how can it be more, not too much work, also not too much interactive, but also real time in terms of, when there's a crisis or when there's something, because sometimes you go to the board and you're telling them, okay, not what they want to hear, but exactly what is supposed to be on their agenda. But there are other underlying things. And as I think as SME leads here, it's important for us to understand, where do I draw the line between information? She touched on it a bit, but I would appreciate if you could add on that. Thank you.
Okay. And then we had the one more question.
Thank you. My name is Gladys Chikule from Legal Mark Advocates. I had two questions, but my first was answered. I just wanted, many of the great people that could be brought on to support corporate governance journey are busy people, and maybe an SME does not know how to reach out to them. Do I just send an email? Do I make a call? Because some of the really great people you can bring on board, it may be a bit hard for an SME to reach out, but I think sourcing was touched on. But my question is, how do you transition without burning bridges? We looked at the different stages of, the different kinds of SMEs, startups, scale-ups, and grown-ups. So I want to become a grown-up, and I think I can reach out to some other kind of experts, that I may not have been interacting with. So it's possible that an advisory board may also develop, I've coined my own word, credo attachment. I grew you. I supported you to where you are, and now you want to kick me out and bring someone who you feel can, take me to the next level. So the grown-ups have their, the board should stay for this long, and after you're done, your time is done. But scale up and setup may not have that. And many of these people may have really journeyed with them. But how do they not burn that bridge, but politely say, now we need to move on to grown-up expertise to support me in my corporate governance journey? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Pertinent question. I think this was something that was a question that was asked by someone in the room, which might kind of speak into where do we find these board members, or if you want to become one. We have the Institute of Corporate Governance of Uganda that has a database, so if you can go and introduce yourself to them and go through their process, and they will have you on their database. We have the League of East African Directors. That's also another forum that you can join. For the ladies in particular, there is the Boardroom Africa. So there are now quite a number of places where you can go and source the kind of board member you're looking for, depending on the expertise that you need in the room. So I think maybe what we can do is combine your answers with your closing remarks as we work our way. So we'll start with Jocelyn and work this way.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. SMEs and board meetings as a drilling room. A very nice one, eh? Now, I think, there's a lot of work that has to happen on both sides when it comes to making sure that that relationship works. And it really, like they say, it takes two to tango, So I think there is, good practice when they say, what happens. A lot of times, a lot of things happen outside of the boardroom and not so much inside of the boardroom. And I'll give an example of one of the things that I used to do, and I still like to do, which is, not surprise my directors. I think for me that was very important. And part of it was, I would have meetings before the board meeting with the chairman specifically, want to really go through the agenda and what is planning and sort of give, key highlights on major pieces, developments or areas that we wanted to discuss. And what would happen is the chairman would at least give me an idea of whether it's additional information he'd want to see or, a different perspective. And that would make the information that I would bring into the boardroom a lot richer. But remember, at this point, I have already, prepared, some of the key things that we want to talk. So having a focus on engaging outside is good practice, and it also helps to sort of, inform the conversation better, because people, have more time to think through the issues. They come prepared better. They know that these are the 5 areas we want to focus on. The other issue I think is around just being proactive in general as management, and just, don't wait. Just have a coffee, and just, even if there's no topic per se, just check in, just have a coffee. What is so difficult about that? Let's have lunch. It shouldn't always be that there's an agenda, because at the end of the day, we are just human beings. And remember, I talked about chemistry. Work that chemistry, because that also talks to building trust, making it easier for you as we engage, and you don't feel like there's hostility in that area. So I think being proactive, building, making effort to meet outside, whether you have an agenda or not, building that relationship like you would for any relationship, it also applies. And I just want also to my thoughts on transitioning boards. Again, best practice will tell you, do you have a board charter? Manage the expectation of the board member when you're recruiting them. Whether it's formalizing on the contract, but just manage that expectation so that, it's not like it was an open-ended engagement. We're together now forever. Now you are part of like a founding team. No. Just, formalize to the extent you can. And there's quite a lot of, I think Rita mentioned, the King Code. Like I said, for all of us who are in business, just like you would do homework on certain aspects, make time to do homework on this particular topic, so that when you are trying to put it in practice, you have something you're falling on. And just to end, if there's anything that I would like to leave with, it's really, for all SMEs, but also for directors, I would say that let's look at corporate governance, not as just, this buzzword or something nice or something that we do so that we can access financing. So, we're sort of being mandated to do it, so now let's do it. But look at it as something that is really a tool. It might not be very clear on the onset, like you mentioned, where you start off and you're not sure. The board tells you, okay, now tone down on this, go a little bit slower, and you don't see immediately. It's not clear to you that value. But I can assure you, as somebody who has lived through quite a bit, there is absolutely a lot of value. And if you take the time to study, you will see all the examples that actually show you that this is best practice. So embrace it fully. And that means when you embrace it, choose the people that are the right ones on the table that you will rely on. Consult them. Don't just inform them. Go the full mile, because ultimately there will be so much value you will unleash for yourself beyond, looking good to investors or, financing institutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Daniel?
Yeah, maybe in closing, I want to say one thing to SMEs. Please future-proof your businesses by putting in place the corporate governance structures, including the board, and focus on the change, which is not only achieving results, but sustainable change that will withstand for generations to come. And then it's okay, try and pick diverse boards, even in the structures. Pick people with different forms of thinking. Let them be diverse. It's okay for them to disagree. Let them discuss and have that conflict and discuss the alternatives within agreed parameters. And whatever they agree on will probably be the best course for the business. Thank you.
Okay, I think just going back to the question of managing the board dynamics that Fiona asked, I also sit on management, and I have a board. And I usually report on the finance numbers and risk. And the one thing that has worked for me, like Jocelyn has rightly said, is I usually have discussions with the chair of the committee before the meeting happens. We go through everything that has happened during the quarter. Additionally, the other thing that I do, I bounce ideas off the board or any of the committee members. And I find that it really, really helps when you kind of get get them, involved in certain aspects of the business where you feel that you're stuck, or where you feel that you are alone and you really don't know how else you can solve whatever challenges that you're facing. So it's that kind of collaboration, just build a good relationship with each one of them. And I know that most of them are always willing to help, to go an extra mile, to make it work, because they also feel that they are invested in that business. Just talking to the separation, the question from Gladys, in terms of the advisory board or the advisory council or whatever it could be, I think at the start, you probably haven't even documented anything stating that you will be formally appointed on this advisory board as an advisor, but it's just a working relationship. I don't think it's really ever terminated. You get a board in place. In some cases, some of them are really good, and then they kind of end up transitioning to the main board. In some cases, they kind of remain there, especially if they have industry expertise, and you keep bouncing ideas off and learning from them along the way. So I don't think we really, really burn these bridges in any way. But just as my concluding remarks, there's an African proverb that if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. I think we've learned so much today, and that would be my only takeaway. So if we really want to have sustainable businesses, if we want to see our businesses outlive us, it's very important that we go together. Let's put in place corporate governance structures. There are benefits for each one of us and also for our businesses to be able to grow, to scale. And like I said earlier, we should start to see some of the Ugandan businesses become international. I thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Guys, your applause is very polite. Can we do something serious? Mini MBA practically for free this afternoon. The other person for whom, or why you'll even do a standing ovation, is the deal flow facility from the FSDU. This session was fully sponsored by DFF. So can we see that due recognition? And on that note, before I let my panelists go, I would like to invite Brenda from FSDU to give us our closing remarks. Rachel, you're going to come and tell us when the next one is, which topics are we going to cover. We were supposed to do a poll, so you tell us whether you found this useful or not, but I think that's not going to be possible, but let us know anyway, because there are various members of the team in the room. And if you have any particular topics you'd like us to talk about in subsequent sessions, please give us that feedback.
All right, thank you so much. I feel like after this session, I'm ready to start a business. Like in my head, I was like, if I just apply 2 or 3 things Jocelyn, Daniel, Sarah, and Jackie have said, my business will scale up in a year. That's what I'm thinking. So allow me to say thank you to the Boardroom Masterclass. I think this gathering validates what the EU wanted to do when they set up the deal flow facility. It's to build capacity for businesses. And the businesses that we support, we have some in the room. I'll just ask them to stand up for recognition. DFF, I can see you, Kuresh, everyone else. They are quite a number. They are feeling shy. So we do, like Sarah had mentioned earlier, we do support growth stage businesses. And if you're a growth stage business, meaning you are looking for funding of about 500,000 and above in private capital, to emphasize, we don't, $500,000, yes. I was trying to be pole about it. Yeah, so if you are a business out there and you're looking for this kind of support, you're looking for private capital, please feel free to reach out to the deal flow facility. And also, I'd like to take this opportunity. We are such a small team. I'd like to introduce Nora, who is our director. She'll just stand up, so in case you meet her anywhere. And I'll also introduce Bobo Rugumayo, who is our investment analyst. So the team is small. It's just the three of us, but I believe we are doing amazing work because we work with different partners, such as the Boardroom Masterclass and many other partners that are in the room. So allow me at this, I've already thanked the Boardroom Masterclass. Allow me to also thank the panelists. I feel like, you know, listening to all of you, we really needed to pay more. We needed to charge entrance fee. So next time, I think, where's Ivan? We need to do something where, you know, people drop something, an appreciation box, because this has really, really been informative, and I believe businesses will really be impacted after this. I would also like to thank all the other partners. I believe the Boardroom Masterclass is going places. We were excited to be a part of it, and we are happy that going forward we'll continue to, you know, to be a part of these sessions so we can learn and grow our entrepreneurs. And also for the guys who started it, the visionaries, right? They were introduced earlier from LegalMark. I think Ruth is here. We have Rachel, a dear friend of mine from Stedman. We also have StanChart. We have FBI team. So thank you so much. And I really hope that after this, we'll be able to, you know, to grow our businesses. I feel like I'll implement some of these things in my family. They say a family is the smallest unit, right? If you run your family right, chances are you can run a business right. So as the board chair, there are things that I'm going to definitely implement. Yeah. So thank you so much, and we look forward to the rest of the other sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A couple of housekeeping things. We are going to do some group photos. The first one will be the panelists. Then all of you will come and join us. We take the group photo. Because we have a very gracious sponsor, there is a cup of tea outside. Please don't leave it for us. And also a time to network. So there might be questions you didn't want to ask when everybody is hearing. So you want to whisper to Josephine, Daniel, Sarah. Take advantage of the networking session as we are having a cup of tea to have that. But thank you so much. I hope you've gone away knowing that corporate investment for any business is an investment. Sorry, corporate governance is an investment, not a cost. And it's an investment in your future. I don't know with Boardroom Masterclass, maybe now we need to think of an academy, because if I look at the things coming on online, we need to take this to a paid class of some sort. Yes. So thank you very much. Over to you, Rachel.
Thank you very much, Jackie. A round of applause for Jackie. Excellent. At the Boardroom Masterclass, we're practicing succession planning as well. And Jackie, you did an amazing job. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. A bit of energy, GJK. Thank you, our dear panelists. Let's clap for our panelists. The stories, I imagine Jocelyn walking into her mom's office and telling her, Mommy, this is what we need to do. And the mom telling her, you're still a young girl. So Jocelyn, exciting stories. Daniel, Sarah, Ruth and I were whispering and saying, that's a Namagunga product. So we know the Namagunga products, and you did an amazing job, and Jocelyn as well, of course, Namagunga. So just to clarify, and of course to Budu. Namilyango. Oh, okay, Namilyango. I know, and we used to go, Daniel, we used to go for socials in a green truck, and Namilyango guys would wait for us to jump off the truck. Interesting stories. We would like to thank the visionaries. They're visionaries. I think it's important for us to recognize GJK, Grace Jethro Kavuma, managing partner for JKC. Unfortunately, he supports Liverpool, and I support his rivals. Jafet Kato is in London, and that's why he's not able to be with us today, but he's online, he's active, and he sends his regards. And just as a reminder, when Jackie was mentioning the people that do board recruitment in, am I too close? Okay, thank you. The people that handle board recruitment in Uganda, number one is JKC. JKC handles, I think, the most board recruitment in Uganda. I'm looking at some of the board members that have been placed by JKC. So please note that JKC comes number 1, then the rest of the institutions mentioned come number 2 and 3 and 4. And would like to recognize Ligomac, Ruth Sebatindira, and Moses Mwase. If I start talking about these two senior council, there are very few senior councils in Uganda, about 40. Though some people use it, but they're not actual senior councils. But Ruth is a senior counsel, member of the Judicial Service Commission, one of the leading ladies in the legal space, and commonly known as, there's a title that she's known as, but let's not mention it, but we're hoping we'll have a female Chief Justice one day. And Moses Mwase, her partner, and of course, Linda Biribonwa of COVI, the Managing Director of COVI, board member at Petroleum Authority, in charge of bringing out fast oil by 2025, which is in 6 months' time. So we are watching and counting. And of course, Stedman Global, which I co-founded, and I'm the MD. So the 4 organizations are the visionaries behind this. It's an exciting journey. You do not know how many phone calls we get from different players, large institutions like you mentioned, the big names you were talking about are calling us. So we feel we're now in a very comfortable space to call Standard Chartered and ask for a premium. Call ABI, we're coming, and ask for a premium. There's a price that's going to go up, but we're doing this on a pro bono basis. Like Brenda has said, we came out, the 4 of us came together and decided we need to give back to society because we all sit on boards, various boards. We need to give back to society. We need to mentor the younger generation. We even need to mentor the older generation that has been on boards, but probably the board members that Jocelyn was talking about, the passive ones, who are on time, who never miss a board meeting, but do not add value. But they're present. And we thought it's a good initiative for us to come out. So it's an unpaid service, but we love that DFF, Standard Chartered, ABI, and others are coming on board. So a big round of applause to DFF today, and to Standard Chartered and ABI, who have also paid for future sessions. Please allow me to recognize the organizing team, Ivan and team. It's unfair if we do not thank Ivan, Emma, Julius, Vanessa, Annabelle, and the whole team. Rachel from Legomark. We have a powerful team. And we know in a year or so, this is going to explode. Like you said, Jackie, the calls, we had about 300 people online. A number of people are asking us to start charging. But how much do you charge? And what do you charge for? And where do we sit? Do we want to get to Victoria Ballroom where we have 500 people? Will it be the same? There's just so much happening in the background, but we want to assure you that your feedback is being taken, and we don't take it for granted that you spend your afternoons here with us and online. So thank you all for coming. Our next Boardroom Masterclass is going to be in 3 months' time, Ivan. And right now we have about 3 topics that we're looking at, different topics. Please share your feedback with us online. What do you want to hear? What do you want to talk about? We are non-political. I know Grace is looking at me. Lest I decide to invite some friends and relatives. But we are non-political, we are non-religious, we are non-binary. We talk about topical issues. How do we transform Uganda? How do we begin to get compared to the bigger markets that Jocelyn was talking about? And that is why we started the Boardroom Masterclass. So please share your ideas on topics that you want us to have, but please look out for your invitation in 3 months' time. And looking forward to enjoying. And next time we will engage UBL. We need to have drinks after 5 p.m. So thank you all, and I'll hand back to Jackie. Thank you all.
Thank you, Rachel. So I hope our photographers are ready. Let's do these group pictures. It's a tradition at the Boardroom Masterclass after every session. For the people who are in the room, we do our photographs. Once we are done with the group photographs, Hajat would like to present our panelists with a tree seedling. So let's get the group photographs done quickly, and then we can do that activity. Tea is available outside. Please go and enjoy it and network.